And then start.
It's got like a uni versus whatever.
You're live.
I'm just learning this pitch anyway.
Make sure you press the live on Rumble too.
Yeah.
The wall behind me looks so sad. It's so blank and sad. I feel like I'm in a fucking mental institution.
Actually, that's quite fitting.
I mean, let's be honest, yeah.
Shit stains on the wall and everything.
Well, I mean, that's. Are we? How are we looking on your side? We got some motion.
We're live.
We got some motion in the world.
Motion in the ocean.
So can they hear us?
Are we audible and visible? Well, I mean, that's.
Yeah, they heard the shit stains on the wall.
We good? All right. Yes. We're good. Yeah. All right. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Doing Better Show. I am Oliver Ox, and it has been it's been like a month, right? I think we haven't had a show in a month. We've had a long series of disasters, starting with Engineer Des and some sickness, and then some other sickness, and then we had a boiler explode on the 6th floor in this lovely building owned by a lovely, wonderful human being who cares so much about his tenants. And yeah, so that fucking everywhere and destroyed a bunch of our stuff. We just found a couple of dead mics. That's wicked fun. Mics are super inexpensive. So yeah, we've had some challenges, but we are back, and I was going to say better than ever, but it's ugly behind me. So I can't say it's better than ever. We're back, less beautiful than before, but having grown and expanded our consciousness and the number of things that we're able to deal with as a result. So feeling very happy for that. Today, we have a wonderful guest. Jamie Smith is here, and he's going to talk to us all about tattooing and the world of tattooing, and then whatever comes up as it tends to here on the Doing Better Show. Joined also by our good friend Beth of yoga fame, here to bring yoga and health to the masses on the cheap. So thank you for joining us, Beth, and of course Broadcast DZ in the house. What's up, DZ?
What's up? Where's the camera? Over there.
Yeah, you got one right over there.
We got a new setup, so.
Oh yes, we also have a new setup that we did before everything exploded. We set the room up all nice and pretty, and we were super excited about some new and better, more optimized camera views. And I think we got it back, and we'll see how we do today. And Engineer Des behind the mic and keyboard and such. Hi, Des.
Hello.
All right. Anything anybody needs to get off their chest before we begin?
I'm glad that came off, just because there was a line that was behind us in the stream that it was just off. We're gonna fix it. There's not gonna be no more lines behind us. Don't worry about it.
We had the two sheets of the Doing Better stuff and the graphic, and they weren't connected. So I'm gonna print it horizontally this time, so we won't have any lines. So it should be much better. Jamie, how are you?
Good, and yourself?
I'm lovely, all things considered. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've been talking about having you on for a little bit, and I'm very excited we managed to pull it off. So I wanted to have you here for a couple of reasons. One of the things that we like to do on the show as much as possible is talk about different career paths from the perspective of both a young person who might want to go into that career path, or someone who wants to career switch maybe into that career path. And then so part of it is practical. Part of it is just for knowledge. I like to understand how things work and how people's careers are and the different things behind the scenes. It's an industry I've certainly consumed in the past, so it's good to learn about. So that's reason one I wanted to have you here. Reason two, you tend to have interesting and thoughtful takes on the issues of the day, and these days have lots of issues. So I figured we'd have lots to chat about naturally. Anything you'd like to share before we get down to me pestering you with questions?
Not really.
Okay, so let's go. So you are currently at Washington Square Tattoo in Haverhill. That's correct?
Yes.
That's actually where I got most of my tattoos.
Nice.
It's a great spot. If anyone's in the Haverhill area, I highly recommend it. Real I don't know if this is true of all shops, but real nerds for tattooing, right? It just feels like there's so much. I don't. Is that true? Is every tattoo artist a nerd for the whole tattoo thing, or is that not the case?
As far as I can tell, I can only judge it based on like what I see online, and it's really fragmented based on style, and I think like the style of the shop goes with the style of tattooing. So over there, everyone seems to like more of like the traditional style.
Yeah.
So the shop has an old 40s, 50s kind of a look to it.
Yeah.
Which is when tattooing kind of became a bigger thing in this country to start. So trying to keep up the traditional look of the place, whereas some tattooers, you see them, and if they're doing more of like a modern style, a lot of them will be in a space that's way more modern. It almost goes together with the style of the tattooing.
Do you so that first you're talking about 40s and 50s? I don't know anything about the history of tattooing. I assume that's World War II related. The rise in the popularity of tattoos.
Yeah, it's service members going overseas and getting tattoos in other countries and then bringing it back here.
Is there like a global home of tattooing back in the day? Like where were they coming from? Is all the rest of the world or just
everywhere else? So there was forms of tattooing in South America, Africa, Asia, everywhere.
Okay. So for most of my life in Massachusetts, it was illegal, right? You couldn't have a tattoo shop, isn't it? I feel like Washington Square opened up fairly soon after they were able to.
There was one in Alston that was legal for many, many years prior to the rest of them opening up.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I believe it was 2002 or 3.
Yeah.
When it was made legal in Mass.
Okay.
It took a while for individual towns, because it's a commonwealth. Each town deals with the licensure and all that permitting for tattooing separate. So everyone had to like figure it out at that point. So now it's a matter of like everyone catching up to each other.
So from are there states that it's still legal?
Illegal?
Illegal, yeah.
I'm not sure.
I've
not looked into it.
It just seems like what was the justification? Go back to 2000 and like everyone's okay with the fact that it's illegal in Mass or whatever, it's the norm. Is it purely a cultural thing? Is there like a semi science, like cleanliness, health and safety thing?
I believe a lot of it was health related.
Okay.
Was I think the reason why Massachusetts had stopped it at that point.
Is there evidence that the tattoo shops transmit disease or anything, like or historically was that the case?
Not that I know of. I think it might have had something to do with the stigma around the people and the areas that they were in. I'm pretty sure got gentrified after they moved certain businesses out.
That makes sense.
So
stigma, I think, is an interesting piece, right? Because going back again, this is fairly recent history. I think going back 20 years, if you had visible tattoos above that stuck out beyond a business shirt, you were likely jeopardizing yourself for a large number of jobs, maybe the vast majority, I would say.
Right.
And I don't think that's the case anymore. You think that's an accurate judgment?
Yeah. Now you're just going to start a conversation in line at the grocery store.
Right.
Like, it's just way more acceptable. I'm not sure how it affects people on the job. I've tattooed a lot of professional people, and a lot of them do well. And I think I see it changed that way.
It was about 13 years ago. I was at a job interview, and the person looked at my tattoo. I didn't realize that my tattoo was showing, and she was petting my tattoo. Because she was just like, what is that? And then she stopped and went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't ask your consent before I touched your tattoo. And I just went, oh crap.
Oh,
because I have a neck tattoo.
Okay. So do you... So like my generation, like millennials, Gen Xers, like big tattoo people. How about the Gen Zers? You think that is it changing? With this newest generation, and if so, are you concerned?
It's very trendy altogether.
Right.
So there's a lot of like I'm 43 now, So compared to the kids that are 18 that are getting tattooed like fresh, what they want is not what I want to do typically. What they think is cool
Is not cool.
I'm not into it.
So like,
it doesn't work that. It's so weird.
What do they think is cool?
There's like a lot of like really small, delicate tattooing being done,
Okay.
which ages terribly.
Right.
If it's done too light, it fades right away, and if it's done heavy enough to like be in there, a lot of times it's splotchy. A lot of people that work in that style, I feel I haven't learned from someone who knows how to put a good tattoo in,
Okay.
and a lot of them look really bad over time. It's just like a thing that I don't do.
Yeah, my leg tattoo is supposed to be block. It's supposed to be filled in and blocked, and I actually they kept playing Mumford & Son while I was getting my tattoo.
I'm sorry.
And it was like needle, pin, stab, pain, and we get the outline done.
Mumford
and
and Son, worse. Yeah.
And they do that, and I'm like, I think I'm done. And as soon as I say that, they change over to Tool and heavy metal. I'm like, could you have played this for the last 2.5 hours? And I never finished the tattoo. I just have the outline, and that's been 10 years. But I really like it. But yeah, as I've gotten older, the outline has kind of spread.
Is that common? People starting tattoos and not finishing them?
I wanted to comment on something else though.
Oh, go.
Music in the tattoo shop is a very contentious subject.
Oh yeah, this was
Because
the owner played that.
you've got a few adults who are still acting like children that get to play whatever we want, and we all have to take turns. And sometimes you like fight through music. I'll put on something and annoy you with it, and then you have to sit there and get something tattooed, and we're laughing at each other. And
Yeah. And this one I actually have kind of messed up because both of them I got in Alston. And it was right next to O'Brien's. So there was a tattoo parlor next to O'Brien's in Alston. And
I know the place.
yes. And Stingray. And so this is my first tattoo, and I'm lying there, and it was the battle of the heavy metal bands on the wall against where I'm at. So first off, everything's vibrating, and then I just start like going. And thank God for Gonzo. Yes, that really was his name, Gonzo. And he grabs me by the back of my neck and just pins me there so he could finish the last little bit. So I have a little mess up right here at the bottom of my tattoo.
So how did you? That's funny. How did you decide to get into being a tattoo artist? Was this like a long time goal? Was this something you sort of stumbled into? Like how did that happen in your life?
So I've always been artistic. In high school, I thought I wanted to be an architect, but that didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Then the first tattoos I saw were on my uncle, who was a tow truck driver, and he had a bunch of biker tattoos, and I don't know, just looked badass no matter what. Like, just always looked cool, and that stuck with me. And later on, when I was working at Home Depot, not doing awesome, and had an opportunity to start, and that's when I started tattooing.
What, like, I feel like that first, the first time you put ink on, like, that's a learning curve. Seems like steep there, right? Like, from going, like, what is that first tattoo like? I would be so nervous. And like, did you do yourself first?
I had to do it on myself first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many tattoos did you give yourself first?
One, it took me like 7 hours.
Is it good?
It's all right. It's still in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy's rule was I had to tattoo myself first so that I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
The weird part was I didn't really have all that many tattoos. So I was kind of naive at the same time. Just went for it.
And then how long until you get good at it, confident? Like, what's that process like from like the day of like, today I'm a tattoo artist until, you know, as far as a couple things. 1, skill level. 2, confidence. 3, finances. Like until you can, you know, charge enough for enough tattoos to make a living. So that was a lot of questions. I tend to do that. I apologize.
you kind of hit about 5 years, and you start to like think you know what you're doing.
Okay.
And then you hit like 10 years, and you figure out all the things you did wrong, and you start to change some shit and like try to do a lot better. Probably 15 to 20 years is when I felt like confident.
Do you think
Took a
that's
while.
true for most tattoo artists or most good ones?
Good ones.
Okay.
Yeah, like some are a little overconfident.
Well, because what you're talking about is something we talk about all the time, right? Is like that. It's certainly not specific to tattooing or to even to artistry. It's like that constant self-editing, always trying to do better. You know, all that iterative process of saying like, oh, here's where I was 2 years ago. You know, whether it's getting better at playing basketball or
Right.
you know, like whatever.
Always,
like here's where I
always
was
competing with yourself.
Oh, exactly, and having that like thought of like self-criticism. And I think sometimes in people, especially in the area of art, like people don't have that. And I think there's some people, I don't think people that are very successful usually, but you will get people who don't have that same like self-criticism and, you know, and it's a balance, right? You don't want to be overcritical and paralysis by analysis kind of thing, right? But at the same time, you want to be better than you were 5 years ago. Even like 5 years, I'm sure you're like at your confidence level, I'm sure 5 years from now, you want to look back and go like, oh, here's a skill that I developed over this 5 years.
Right, but I almost feel like I never want to feel super confident about whatever I've done. Like I always want to find where it could keep going.
Right.
So I'm never really that happy with anything I've done. It's just like part of the process. It gets better, but I almost don't notice it as it's happening.
How often like do you like finish a tattoo and you're like take that quick moment of like, oh, that's pretty fucking good. Like do you get that? Yeah.
Yeah. It's been
Okay, good.
23 years. I've done it for a while.
Well, I'm not saying that would never, but I was some regularity. You got to like have. I don't. So I think about myself like I write a lot of silly songs, and like usually you finish a song and you're like, oh, that's pretty fucking good, and then a year later you go back and you're like, yeah, that's all right,
Yeah,
but
how many times you wrote one and you're like, that's a banger. You like it's never like that good.
That's true. Know? Very rarely.
Yeah, that's how it usually is.
Okay, so it sounds very consistent with all art forms.
I think that's normal. I think it's how like a normal person can keep growing.
So then in terms of a career path, you know, it's one of the more feasible, realistic career paths for an artist, right? There's not. I think there's a lot of talented visual artists seem to end up in tattooing because you can actually make a living doing it. Whereas I think, unfortunately, there's lots of painters who won't make a living selling their paintings, and sculptors who won't make a living selling their sculptures, and right?
Right.
So, what is the amount of money you make as an artist directly correlated with how good you are, or there are lots of other intervening variables that matter?
Well, the internet matters.
Okay.
It's a very big driving force. There's people tattooing for very short periods of time that are doing very well with that marketing.
That makes sense though, right? Because then if you get good at one thing and you can get a lot of attention for it, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. When I started tattooing, that wasn't a thing. Like you didn't specialize in a style of tattooing. You did whatever came through the door because that's how you made money. You had to take care of the customer, and if you're stuck doing, I only do My Little Pony tattoos, like,
right?
How many times am I going to be able to sell that?
Right.
So that's why I learned to be versatile. I'll do whatever.
Still to this day, you have that same attitude, or
I will do anything for money.
How, Des? You got a thought? Engineer Des is the question. What's up, Des?
Okay. Have you ever had like an idea or a thought for a tattoo you had to reject?
That I had?
Yeah, that you rejected to do.
Oh, somebody else's idea.
Yeah, I won't do any like hateful tattoos, anything like that. That's about it. Everything else is fair game. If it's like funny, you can be edgy and funny, but like Nothing that's just like overtly like, no, this is just hateful. No way.
Is there are there a lot of people going around being like, hey, put hateful tattoos on me?
Not really.
But it happens.
Yeah. And it's like, no, not going to do that.
How often do you put a tattoo on someone and you're like, you're going to fucking regret this shit?
Oh, that happens every once in a while.
Right. I was gotta, like,
More
people must get some really
regularly.
bad ones.
So, okay. A big thing that definitely separates a lot of the younger people from older people when it comes to getting tattooed, younger people do not like to listen to suggestions at all. They have already decided what they're doing.
Yeah.
You are just going to do it, mister. Whereas, like, older people, like, hey, that's not going to look good because of this.
Right.
They will hear what you said and then take it in consideration. That's not doesn't mean they're going to do it, but they'll listen.
I wonder, so do you think that is just an age thing, or you think that's a generation thing? Or
I was probably the same way
You think
when
so,
I
yeah.
was that age. I think it's just being a kid, being young.
I think
Yeah.
that probably makes sense. DZ, any thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You have a decent amount of tattoos, right?
Yeah.
You got
I have one on my arm, one on my chest, one on my stomach. But yeah, I'm gonna get a lot more later on. Just I took a little break from it.
so. I would imagine that there's probably a lot of annoying things about being a tattoo artist. Like, do people always like give you their stupid tattoo ideas and talk to you ad nauseum about things that you don't particularly want to talk about?
I mean, yeah.
I would imagine, right? Like, if you're like, oh, you meet someone, you're like, oh, I'm a tattoo artist. Like, oh, guess what? I'm gonna get like blah on the blah, and then I'm gonna mirror.
Well, because like you like get into a room of people and everyone like talks about what they do,
Right.
And what I do sounds like the coolest thing ever, so that it just makes people act crazy, and they want to tell you all these things that they're not gonna do. Like, I don't know, so many. That's one of the good things about not drinking is I'm never at a bar that someone finds out that I'm a tattooer and they want to talk to me about. Oh, that is the worst.
But I think it's a big thing so my brother's a mechanic, and like it's a hazard of like if you're a mechanic, everyone's gonna fucking bother you with their car problems all the time, right? Like
I
you're always
actually
gonna
would tell people I was a mechanic.
so they wouldn't bother you with their tattoo ideas.
Yeah.
I'd rather be bothered with people's car problems and their stupid tattoo ideas.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing about my job. My job's stupid and boring, and I'm telling people what I do, and they're like, "Oh, cool, next topic." So
Yeah, it's crazy. Even I felt that with working at Comcast. Like, I can't support people that I work at Comcast. They're like, why you make my cable bill go up? Like, bro.
I work for a drug company. I've worked for drug companies for over 20 years. I get turned like, you're Satan! You evil corporate! I'm like, dude, I just need health insurance.
that's my boss you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, so
We're
it
on
could
the
be
same
worse.
page. We're on the same
Yeah.
page about that. I just need the health insurance.
I'm trying to think of there was a few other tattoo related questions I wanted to talk about. Any other tattoo related questions from you guys? So I got one personal one. This might be a little on the, I don't want to throw shade on your industry, but I'm gonna. So here we go. I am concerned about the shit in the ink. Should I be concerned about the shit in the ink for my health? After my last tattoo, it was the biggest one I ever got, and I felt kind of gross after, and I felt like there might be a relationship between whatever was in the ink and how I felt, and I haven't got one since, and I know they make some like eco healthier inks. I doubt they work I'm guessing they don't work as well, and that's why people don't use them. Could you speak on this topic?
So I know that like FDA oversight is going to be coming to that part of the industry.
Yeah, I don't care about that. The government's full of shit. I'm asking you, someone who know. Like, I just like there's like heavy metals and shit. Like, what's the how concerned should people be? Maybe not. Like, I don't know. And are there actual alternatives?
I mean, I've not really looked into it.
Really?
it's I don't know if it's just like a part I've decided like that I'm all in.
It's too late.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, there's warnings about allergies if you're certain chemicals that are in dyes and inks that may interact with each other. But
So that's a thing, right? So when I first started, I had like a small handful of people who would have certain like bumps and things in certain colors. Mm-hmm. So then you'd avoid certain colors from certain companies. Yeah. The last 15 years, I've not had anybody have any reaction to a certain product.
Yeah. And I have a little bit of a reaction and bumps in my first tattoo from 20 years ago, but the one I have from 10 years ago is fine.
If it's a physical feeling, that's because it's trapped in scar tissue.
Yeah.
And it's still a foreign matter in there. If you get it out in the sun, the sun breaks the pigment up and starts to let it migrate. The sun heating up that skin will cause tattoos to raise up and sometimes get itchy.
That makes sense.
But that's a common thing, though, right?
It's the hot water and everything from my shower.
So yeah, I should preface this like with me. Hey, pay attention over there, engineer. Does stop texting your girlfriend. That's what I was doing. So, so I'm like the thing I'm fortunate at is I have a very good immune system. I almost never get sick. The flip side of that is I'm the most sensitive person to chemicals ever. Like if you spray Axe body spray, I'm out of here. Like I'm not coming back. I won't breathe. Yeah. And like things like that. So like if you, it's part of it works out okay because I don't ever need medicine because every time I take medicine, every single side effect I'm getting it. You know what I'm saying? Like so if anyone was gonna have a negative reaction to things like this, I would be the one. So I'm not discouraging anyone else. I'm just asking a personal question because it interests me.
I forgot to take my prescription.
There we go. What are the trends in the industry right now? What's happening in tattooing? Like, are there new things going on? Are there things you're concerned about? Are there things you're excited about?
It's all kind of business as usual. I'm just gonna show up at work and hang out, wait for someone to show up and get something, and I don't know. It's a little slower than it was a couple years ago. There's no more free money.
Yeah.
So that part's the industry's changed over the last few years. The whole COVID thing really screwed up how everyone was doing things. So, I mean, a lot of it's a little my theory, but it seemed everyone got really busy once we could get back to work after being locked out.
I remember people posting during lockdown times like, I just can't wait to go get a tattoo and blah, blah, blah. Like it was a thing.
So I think what happened was if you didn't have one and all of a sudden it was like, you can't get one. If you were like, but I need it. And for like 3 months, they're like, I need this. So then once we finally could, it was crazy. And it seemed at the same time, a lot of people took on a lot of apprentices. So a lot of people started tattooing at the beginning of lockdown lift restrictions. And now people don't have that money, but there's so many more tattooers. So the work has started to dry up a little bit.
So do you think it's a supply and demand issue rather than a barometer on the economy?
I mean, that definitely plays into it.
Because I feel like it's one of those industries that is...
It's the two at the same exact time.
Okay.
Less money, more tattooers. And I think their generation, the next generation is going to get less. I think it hit its peak. We went full like Jersey Shore with it, and we're like pulling back.
Like our age.
Yeah. And
right?
It's kind of, I feel like it's pulling back. Younger kids don't get as many... where all the people that are heavily tattooed seem to be a little bit older at this point.
So, do you over your career have you seen the relationship between the economy as a whole and your industry? Like, is there do you have any sort of secrets of like, oh well, I always see this, then this is going to happen or whatever? Like, is there any necessary relationship or not so? No, interesting.
No. When when the '08 crash happened,
Yeah.
all the older dudes I work with were like, "Don't worry about it. Tattooing's recession proof." It was like a thing they said.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was like a sign of that era, like post 9/11, post that crash. Everyone's like, "Fuck it, like let me get sleeves," and everyone, like a lot of people, got heavily tattooed in that time frame.
Interesting. Okay, couple more tattoo questions, then we're going to move on to the world, unless you guys have other things, unless you want to have anything you want to talk about. So, what would your advice be? Do you have advice for people who are getting tattoos? General, like, things, if you're going to go get a tattoo, X, Y, and Z. Do's or don'ts, or don't fucking annoy me with this, or anything like that. Any words of wisdom for people going to get a tattoo? Maybe a first tattoo.
Don't look up your design on Google. Find a place that uses black lines, and I don't know, find real reviews. Like,
What do you mean? Don't look up your design on Google.
there's a lot of the same kind of things being done over and over again.
Oh, okay.
There are lots of very redundant, the same images all the time. A lot of pocket watches with a lion and blue eyes.
Okay.
I don't. How many times do I need to do this? It's like this means a lot to my family.
The one on my leg definitely was a Google search. I had done too many vodka shots, and the next thing I needed to go to was like 2 hours, so I just hung out at the tattoo parlor, and they had like a search database, and I found it, and it was something that made me laugh, so
That's perfect.
I got it, and they made me wait 2 weeks for a 2-week waiting period before I came in and actually did it, because they're like, "You're drunk. No, you can't have this now, A, because of bleeding and all of those safety things, but also, what if she sobers up and really hates this?" So they made me come back after 2 weeks and
You're
then
lucky.
did it.
Sometimes you tattoo people so that when they sober up, they'll hate it.
I would have loved that.
Take that, fucker. That's good.
I have.
Okay.
I was getting drinks with my coworkers and my boss left me at the tattoo parlor, so it would have been really funny. I would have come into work and went, "Look what you did to me!"
So then, second question: advice for people who are thinking about going into being a tattoo artist.
Don't. No.
No, is that would you say don't do it? This is a bad time in the industry. Like you think it's, or what?
I honestly think it's a bad time. I don't understand. Well, I mean, I guess I could understand. A lot of places will charge you to give you an apprenticeship, to get you a tattoo license.
Really?
I mean, that kind of the similar idea with like a hairdressing school, but in hairdressing there are schools.
Oh, okay, I get it.
So in the tattoo industry, it's a mentor and an apprentice.
But you're not just like, I thought the apprentice like swept the floor and did all the shitty work. That was how they paid their way, right? Like, no?
Not
I
necessarily.
guess probably not that many floors to sweep in a tattoo shop, right?
Right. So there's some places that will charge money and they'll take multiple apprentices and have people coming out constantly.
Oh, okay.
Right. So then there's places like us who want one at a time, and there to be like some standard as to how long the person who's teaching the next person, like there should be some regulation there.
Okay.
Where there's a lot of younger tattooers getting other younger tattooers into it, and no one knows what they're like.
Gotcha.
I see what they're posting, and it looks like a lot of people don't know what they're doing, and it's like just overall bad for the business eventually.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So, who would you tell to go into being a tattoo artist? Like, is there a certain type of person who you think it's well suited for, or a certain type of artist that it's well suited for?
I mean, it is a great job for an artist. I get to be creative every day. So, like, if someone really wanted to do it, I wouldn't completely discourage somebody.
Yeah.
But I would hope someone would want to do it because they actually wanted to do it, not have like the cool look that goes with it.
Gotcha. For you, does it
It's a lot of
facilitate?
work to do it right.
Yeah. Does it facilitate your other artwork? Being a tattoo artist, does it allow you to do your other stuff?
It kind of is my artwork.
Okay,
I end up not having time really to do much anything else. So I mean, fortunately, I get to be creative when I'm doing it.
Okay. Do you think that's a practical thing, or that's like art is work now when you've associated those things?
It kind of grew organically that way.
Yeah.
So when Gretchen got pregnant 12, 13, 14 years ago,
Yeah.
I realized like I'm going to need to do stuff at home. I'm not going to have time to draw at home all the time. So I just said I'm going to do it, and I started drawing everything on the client. So then I get that out every day, even if it's not something I like. I have to create something and make a good tattoo out of it. So.
How often do you do work that is just like someone comes to you and says like, do your thing? Like this? I assume you because you have a pretty good following of people. Like, does that happen?
There's usually some kind of parameter.
Yeah.
There'll be like either the subject matter or the space involved, whatever. One out of every year is like someone that's just like, do whatever. Which I had one recently as a friend of mine.
Yeah.
I drew something on it. He wouldn't look at it until the tattoo was completed.
Oh wow.
And it was weird, and he liked it, and it was fine.
Wow.
But,
Okay.
yeah, there are people who are trusting enough, knowing I wouldn't do something like mean. You know what I mean? I want to do something cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to be mean. I want to do something fun. So.
Do you ever like travel to go tattoo conventions? Go to check out other tattoo?
We're doing one in April.
Cool.
We've got 3 of us from Washington Square and a couple of guys from Shogun in Salem.
Nice.
All going down to Mohegan together.
Cool. And that's like a
weekend.
What do those look like? What is that like it's a convention? Like how does that work?
Yeah, so there's gonna be a sideshow. There's gonna be like people throwing knives, a guy stabbing himself with a stapler. There'll be like a dude screaming on a microphone all weekend. There's gonna be a band inside the room. There's gonna be people selling beef jerky and t-shirts, and then tattooers sprinkled like throughout the rest of it.
Is that an opportunity that you would take to go like find an artist that you really like and get some of their work and vice versa, or is that like are you just in a work mindset for that?
It's like a lot of it is like going to meet other tattooers and like hang out with people that are your peers. Some people will get stuff from other people while they're in that spot because it's a good opportunity when you don't have to travel as far.
Yeah.
And then like a lot of people like to go to those to people watch because it's like anime conventions bring out like people in cosplay.
Yeah.
You get like tattoo cosplay people.
Okay. No. So that's I'm sorry. I'm pulling up.
Thinking.
I'm pulling up my. I'm pulling up my questions and processing that at the same time because that's that's the whole thing. Okay. We have some standard doing better show interview questions that we always like to run by everybody. So I want to give you our standard interview questions. That's what I was pulling up right now. Oh, you're giving us a little bit of cool air.
Perfectly timed.
It's getting warm in here, yeah. It is getting warm in here. Where the fuck is my thing here? Yes,
Yes.
everything. What do you got, Des? Oh yes, I'm keeping an eye on that too. I'm staying on top of things. We're trying to be a little more tight to the schedule these days. I don't know where the fuck. So I know question number 1. I don't have it on my list, but I know off the top of my head. What is your favorite? We have a question from the chat. What is your favorite medium beside tattooing?
Bonsai?
Oh, okay. So I've seen this. Tell us about bonsai because I know this is a big part of your life these days.
I honestly find trimming trees and taking care of plants pretty therapeutic, and this is like a weird. It's kind of art. I think it's art.
I mean, it's definitely art. Yeah.
But it's also I get to learn about a plant and take care of it, and I love doing that. So
That's definitely a certain type of person that could do that. It's very time consuming and like fiddly and like I don't know. What is it about you? Do you think that's related to you being a tattoo artist? Do you think those things go together?
no.
No, okay, fair enough.
I think I saw the Karate Kid when I was little. And I was like, that looks dope.
Fucking sweet. All right. Here's my questions. Okay, question 1, origin question. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And what about where you're from makes you who you are?
I was born right down the street at Bon Secours Hospital in Methuen. Now it's Holy Family. I've lived in Lawrence my whole life. What was the third part of that?
Oh, what about where you're from makes you who you are?
I drive terrible.
That's a good answer. Where have you been in the world that has had the biggest impact on you?
I'm here. I don't know.
Yeah, home. Yeah.
I haven't really gone that far, so like none of those places have had that much of an impact on me. All the impactful things happen around the Merrimack Valley, you know.
Fair enough. What's one thing that you are doing better now than the old you, and how did you make that change?
Oh, I stopped drinking 8 years ago,
Yeah.
so that changed everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a mess, and yeah, never again. Don't
Yeah,
do that.
I think that's a very common. That's a very common. I know I haven't quit. I still will have a drink here and a drink there, but I've stopped drinking.
But you've also noticed more of your friends also like, oh, I'm gonna stop in a little bit. Like a lot more people not drinking. People are okay with it.
Well, that's one cool thing I think that's happened in the last 10 years is there's a lot more, that's a lot more socially acceptable than it used to be. It used to be really, really hard to be able to go out and socialize and not drink. And not like drink. You know what I'm saying? Like It's one thing. Like again, I'll go out and I'll have a beer, but I can't have 5 beers. I mean, I can't even have 2 beers really, because 2 beers almost always turns into 5 beers, and 5 beers turns into 10, and 10 turns into me ruining 3 days of my life and hurting people that I love.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So like, and I also physically I can't fucking hang anymore, and that's the thing when I see like people older in the years who still drink a lot. I'm like, how do you? Because if I have a couple of beers, even 2 beers, I will not feel as good tomorrow. And if I properly drink, I might be out for like 2 or 3 days of not properly functioning, and like my immune system gets destroyed, like everything. So, and I know the people that love me more when I'm not drinking. So
exactly.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Well, and I think for those of you out there who are struggling with drugs and alcohol, reach out and make an effort, because it feels really, really hard at first, and it definitely gets easier over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Way easier over time.
Yeah, you stop dreaming about it.
Cool. All right, next one. It's a good one because you're from here. What could we be doing better in your community, and what needs to change in order for that to happen?
Someone needs to teach the trash men to put all the trash in the trash truck, because a lot of that shit ends up on the street every single trash day, and I feel like that's like a huge part of the litter problem in this area.
Do you agree?
I've watched.
You guys have all been, yeah. I think I never thought about that. That's an interesting one, because like when you think about the number one, Lawrence doesn't always have the greatest reputation in this area.
I think there's some people that they see it a certain way, so they feel like they can treat it a certain way.
Broken windows theory, right?
Right.
Like that's the whole, like if you're in a neighborhood with a broken window, you're more likely to break another window. The number one predictor of whether people are going to litter, there's two number one the top 2 predictors are whether there's already garbage on the ground and if there's a garbage can around.
Right.
So like those are the 2 things. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But I also think it's a really powerful thing. So like if I go into I travel a lot, and if I go into a neighborhood and there's garbage on the floor, I'm like, oh, I'm in a shitty neighborhood. right? Like that's like sort of the number one way that you know, garbage on the floor, things broken and disheveled, right? And that's a really, really, the fact that you think there might be, that the major cause might be the people who are paid to pick up the garbage, that A, makes the problem very solvable, right? Like that's low hanging fruit for solving a problem. Right. And B, like that's a big problem. Like that's a huge issue that you have the people who are responsible. This is their job, exacerbating the problem. And I think for a city like Lawrence, it's not helping anybody's life and improving anything.
Right.
And it makes that piece of garbage that the garbage man didn't pick up makes the next piece of garbage more likely. And you know, I think on a street full of garbage, you're probably more likely to get mugged. And again, I'm serious. Like I don't mean like.
There's a funny. I had a rant like this morning because I went to go get. I went out yesterday, and I went to go get coffee before I drove home, and I had to go into Roxbury. So I was in the JP Roxbury, more or less touristy side, and I went into Roxbury because it was the only place that was open at 2 a.m. Okay, yes, I'm in Roxbury at 2 a.m. And I go and I get the coffee, and I'm like, I'm so grateful. Thank you very much. I get out, and I look around, and the neighborhood's beautiful. It's immaculate. The roads are wide. And I just go, I could live here. I'm good.
Yeah.
Of course, they're not going to let me live there, but that's their best kept secret. And I just went, I could live here. I feel very comfortable here.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you clean it up, it's like, yeah.
No, it's true. It's a huge difference.
And all the houses were freshly painted. Everyone like gave a shit.
To me, like the common in Lawrence is like when it's clean and well kept, like it's like a nice and inviting place. And when it's not, it's not. It's really very
But when you like see the trash on the road,
yeah,
and it's a Tide container, not a 20 ounce. You
Fair
know
enough.
What I mean? Like
Yeah.
that kind of trash is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
How does that get on the road everywhere unless it's coming from the trash?
Yeah, I don't think it's too many people chucking Tides out of their window right as they drive down the street.
I don't see that. I don't see those yards. It's like always in the street.
Well, if anyone is watching this from Lawrence and has any insight on this, this is an interesting one. I want to, if we can get to the bottom of the slacker trash men, people, I should say, trash collectors not doing it, or maybe the companies are cutting corners, not giving them the time they need to get their route done. Whatever it is, this is a big deal, and it's a little deal that's a big deal. I think it's one of those things. All right, last question on my typical guest questions. What is your favorite food? It's a two-part question. Part one, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite meal?
Favorite meal?
Yeah. Wow.
That's hard.
It is hard, I know.
Because it like depends on how I feel. Like.
Oh, okay. Well, so that probably gives me the answer to the second part of the question. But so you have nothing in particular that jumps to mind as a favorite meal or favorite food? Wow. Okay. You like you're a variety person.
I like a lot of different things. Yeah.
What are you into lately? Anything interesting?
Olives.
Oh, olives. Olives are one of those things that as a kid, I didn't like. And like, you know how they say your taste buds change as you get older? Oh, yeah. And I remember I didn't like gin either. And then when I got older, I really enjoyed the taste of gin. That's good. And learned to love the taste of olives. And olives are like one of my favorite things in the world right now. Where do you get your olives from? What's your olive?
Kobani's, right down the street.
Okay.
We got a sampler that had a couple different variety in there.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. No, I enjoy me some olives. That's good eats. All right. Let's. We got a few minutes. How?
That's the second part of the question.
What? Oh, well, the second part of the question is irrelevant because the second part of the question is usually, would you rather only eat that for the rest of your life or never eat that again for the rest of your life?
I could eat olives for the rest.
You really would eat? So I thought, yeah. Nothing else.
I probably could. Yeah.
Wow.
See, that's how you asked the question because you would have thought.
I would have thought the other way after you were like, like everything. So how you feeling about this world we're living in right now? You got any thoughts on the new president and his actions? Any of the many horrendous and crazy things that are going on in this world right now? What's your take? You got any takes to share?
What's with all the plane crashes?
That one's So that one's a little interesting.
All real close.
So I saw somebody post something along those lines about like what's up with all the plane crashes, and then somebody else, as is always the case on
Internationally as well.
right? But someone said like this, the average, I think it's like 200 plane crashes a year, and I guess whenever people talk about bias in the media, I always think of the number one bias, the unavoidable bias is where do you put your camera, right? Like so like. If there's 200 plane crashes a year, theoretically, you could always have a news story about a plane crash, right? Like, I always think about when somebody dies. Like, what makes somebody's death newsworthy, right? Like, if you're rich and famous, no matter how you die, you're newsworthy, right? You got Jimmy Carter dies, it's going to be in the news. Bono dies, it's going to be in the news, like whatever. But like, if you're not rich and famous, like what makes like why is a death newsworthy or not newsworthy? And it's interesting because there's such power in the selection of, are we going to talk about someone killed by an illegal immigrant and we're going to talk about that nonstop for weeks? What makes that person's life and or death more important than someone killed by not an illegal immigrant or something, like fill in the blank, right? Like somebody dying of starvation versus somebody being murdered in some fancy way, or somebody being murdered by a bomb versus murdered by a serial killer or whatever. Like, it's interesting. So I wonder, anyway, the whole point of that spiel was I wonder with plane crashes, is it just that we're focused on them or are they actually happening more? And I'm not sure what's true about that.
I think it's just the timing of the two so close to each other.
The thing that time gets me a little bit is I feel like some of these things should have been almost eliminated by technology. Here's an example.
All these uses for AI, and they're not automating certain aspects of things where like human error is a huge issue.
Right. So like in the same industry in a much less serious way. So like lost baggage. Right, like lost baggage. My dad used to travel all the time for work, and like it was an epidemic. Like if you were traveling a lot, you were going to lose a bag. It was just going to happen, and it pretty much. I mean, it still happens, but it's never happened to me before. And I check a bag pretty much 3 or 4 times a month, and there's a reason for that because they scan everything. It's all automated. It's all in a computer database. Like it's just we've used technology to make the problem of lost baggage from here to like this, right? And like. Right. I feel like plane crashes should probably be like largely in the same category. Certainly planes crashing into each other, right? Like that helicopter one seems like, shouldn't there have been some thing to make that not be possible? Like, shouldn't there have been? And I read some account that I guess they said they were doing a visual. The helicopter pilot said it was a visual. They were going to keep in touch visually, or visual separation, I think is the term they used. That they weren't going to do it with the radar. They were just going to like look and be like, I'm not going to hit that plane there. And I guess they looked at the wrong one. That was I swear to God, that was a story I saw. It was from an aviation expert who had been flying for years. Said like that was what happened. And that just seems like a very low-tech explanation to me in 2025 with AI and, scanners on everything, just cameras on everything. I don't know. That was my... Do you have a conspiracy theory on this? I love me a conspiracy theory, especially now because most of the good ones came true. So, sorry, some asshole left his alarm on.
I saw that kind of recently they've developed the ability to fly a Black Hawk like a drone.
I saw that.
So that's kind of convenient.
I saw that. Yes, it is possible to fly a Black Hawk remotely.
Which means if you could fly that remotely like a drone, that it would have the capability to see stuff and not hit it.
You would think that seems logical. This is a terrible thing. Again, this is going to probably say something about me and the world that we live in, or you'll decide which is more. But my first thought when I saw this crash was, I wonder who was on that plane. And that's a terrible way of thinking, but like, I don't know if you've looked into what was the one that disappeared.
MH370?
Yes. That was the, right, over the Pacific,
over
right?
The Indian Ocean.
Yeah, and that was, like, that one, fuck that. There's no way that story's on the level. There's no way we can't lose fucking planes. I'm sorry, it's 2025. That didn't happen.
Well, yeah, there's too much stuff on the plane that floats.
It just doesn't. I just don't buy the losing it and having no ability to find it. But there's the stories about the people that were on that plane. There was a lot of technology and brain power on that. So, and then certainly was Senator Paul Wellstone, I believe, in the 90s was a vocal anti-war guy who magically his small plane went down. But if you're a senator and you're anti-war, don't fly in small planes, basically. But so that was my first thought. Any thoughts on the fires?
I saw a really weird video of a neighborhood that had just really specific houses burnt down in it.
Yep.
I have no idea where that was. It looked like California, but who knows with the internet now.
The fire one's interesting because I feel like every time there's a disaster, right? There's two main ways of thinking about it, or a disaster that shouldn't have happened, right? Like obviously some shit happens sometimes, asteroids fall, crashes happen, whatever. But whenever there's one of these disasters that you go, 9/11 is a great example, right? Like when there was some conspiracy, there was some nefarious actors, or a lot of people were really, really bad at their job over and over and over again. And the California fire one seems to fall right into this category. And there's a famous quote, I forget who it's from, but it says, never blame something on malfeasance or on a purposeful bad act when incompetence will suffice for the. My dad would always, whenever me and my dad would argue about anything conspiratorial, and I would tend to fall on the conspiratorial side, and he would tend to fall on the people are idiots side, and that's why things go wrong. And I think the California fire seemed like yet another great example of this one, because it seems like, emptying out they emptied out that big reservoir that was right there. They had all the fire trucks in the shop. They had a bunch of fire hydrants that didn't work. There had been warnings time and time again for many years that this area wasn't well protected. There had been warnings that they needed to do some of the controlled burns to get rid of, again, explanation one, the non-conspiratorial explanation, is lots of people are really stupid and really bad at their jobs. And there's quite a few of those.
Yeah.
The other side is did someone do this on purpose? And both this one and the Hawaii one, again, I don't like to jump to conspiracies for everything, but I think there's reason, given the value of this property, this is not just some random property somewhere, right? This is some of the most valuable property on the face of the planet. It's also some people that involved
beachfront Malibu.
Yeah, it's all that whole Palisades area, right? This is all this is where celebrities live. Also, lots of Diddy connected people. If you're also on the conspiracy train, again, I don't know that covering up baby touchers is a reason to burn down an entire neighborhood. The thing that sketched me out is, I don't know, the big conspiracy theory on this for the conspiracy theory people, and I always it's always good to entertain them, whether or not you believe them, is the directed energy weapons stuff. Have you seen any of the directed energy weapons conspiracy theory talk? So the idea that basically these are giant lasers in satellites. This is the reason people have these conspiracy theories, is because Reagan wanted to do this in the 80s. This is well documented DARPA project. So now, whether or not we actually have them is a different thing. The technological side of that is not easy. Long distance laser, and that's the physics of that, is you need a shitload of energy to be able to pull something off like that. The physics of that action at a distance, and as that distance gets bigger, you need exponentially more energy. So it's not just zap some shit with a laser. It's a big deal if it's happened, but it's theoretically possible. And the thing that sketches me out about these is these are forest fires that spread and kill these neighborhoods. But a lot of these neighborhoods have all the trees still standing in them. And I don't know how something burns down a house and not a tree. There is a lesser conspiracy theory on this one that I've heard, which is that it was the smart meters are all in these houses. And the smart meters are, this is not really conspiracy theory, it's just an alternative explanation, that because all these smart meters run to wiring throughout the house, and that they burn really hot, that once a smart meter catches fire, you're fucked. Basically, is the other explanation I've heard, and that sort of would explain why you'd have houses burned down and not trees, maybe. I've also seen the molten aluminum
in an area that's been in a drought for a long time. And a lot of them are eucalyptus trees that are super flammable.
Again, I don't know enough about tree science and tree burning science, but it does seem sufficiently sketchy.
All I know is that if my fire hydrant doesn't work, it's the government.
Oh, so yeah. So again,
who controls that stuff?
Yeah. No, I'm the fire trucks being broken down and then dumping all the water in, whatever. Yeah, I think there's a lot to it. It was certainly, again, if nothing else, it was a massive failure. But yeah. Any thoughts on the early days of President Trump version 2? Are you surprised by anything?
These days, no. Everything is weird and crazy.
Yeah.
So nothing is surprising.
Are you concerned the number of billionaires in his cabinet and in his ranks?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, that's
the last time around it was just like military. Everything was ex-military. That was weird on itself. And now oligarch takeover.
Yeah. So it seems to me in my talking to Trump fans around the country and in general that most people who were pro-Trump were anti-everything else. And they're like, Trump is not everything else, so that's why I like Trump. He's going to be different. I've never shared that view, but it is a view that I think most pro-Trump guys go like, he doesn't need their money, like he doesn't need to listen to them. They're trying to kill him. They're trying to put him in jail. He's against the system.
I believe that, I think they played on the fact that sentiment was already there. Like people already felt that way about everything. So then he's like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. So it's easy to be like, oh, that's what he's going to do.
How long before those people get wise? No offense if you're those people. But so like, because to me it seems like right away. So like he's talking about getting rid of corruption and big investigations, and and then he gets elected and he's like, all right, we're gonna go take Greenland now and like Gulf of America and like just a bunch of shit that is totally off base from what got him elected. I mean, Obama did the exact same thing, by the way. So like, I'm not being partisan about this.
All those moves seem like what I would do if I was playing a video game and this is the video game, like version of life.
Explain.
Take Greenland and like I'm doing that right away.
Yeah.
Like
that's funny.
Grand Theft Auto.
It's awful, but
or like Risk or like Civilization or one of those. Yeah, I get it.
If you had to like think baseline, like how do I protect myself? I'm scared. Like yeah, I'm taking both of those. I can shoot over the top. I can like cut off that.
It's interesting. That's funny. So do you think? Do you think there's a rational? You think there's people like rationally being like, this is our best path?
Well, yeah, I think the cult is the cult no matter what.
Yeah.
I think there's like, doesn't matter who it is. Like, there's gonna be all those people that are just so diehard weirdos for these politicians that like they can do no wrong. Doesn't matter.
I hope that's a smaller group than we think.
Because literally, they all do things to screw us over constantly, but there's always people like weirdly into their politicians.
Yeah, it is weird.
Culty,
it is weird.
very
Yes,
culty.
yeah, it is weird. All right, we're getting a little tight on time. Any final thoughts? Anybody? Jamie? Anything you'd like to share before we wrap? Anything you'd like to get off your chest?
This is fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We can find you on Instagram, correct?
Yes.
Tats McStabby.
True. Yes.
That will be in the description. There will be links, and we can find you in real life at Washington Square Tattoo in Haverhill.
Tattoo. Yep.
I highly recommend Washington Square. Great spot and a cool little piece of the city too. Final thoughts from the rest of you guys. Engineer Des has something to say.
There's no way Luka Doncic is getting traded for Anthony Davis. No way.
Okay. He wants to throw his basketball in there. What do you think? Do you see this trade today? Do you know what he's talking about?
I don't care about basketball.
There you go. See, there you go. Sorry, I tried, Des. I tried for you. I did my best. But he doesn't care about basketball, and neither does Danny. Beth, any thoughts on the trade?
I only heard about it on NPR, so I can't believe that.
That's awesome. 10 points. All right, cool. Beth, we can find your current yoga doings where can people?
All right, so I'm kind of doing something weird. So I started a new
Never.
LLC called La Luz de Luna. Yeah, I was going to open in Lawrence, so I decided I should do my signage in Spanish.
Do it. I like it.
What I'm going to do now, because there's been some drama, I haven't been able to open a brick and mortar. Instead, I'm going to be doing lots of pop-ups in the Merrimack
Cool.
Valley. So right now I am doing some of the teaching in a rotation over at Lighthouse Yoga Studio.
Okay.
Which is in North Andover, right by the Lawrence Airport. Every Sunday at 3 p.m., that yoga studio does free yoga classes.
Free yoga.
And then in April, I actually have rented space at the Lawrence Heritage State Park in the common room, which is on the 3rd floor of the museum. And we'll be doing free yoga every Sunday at 11 a.m.
Free yoga.
Yep. And then I'm hoping to get some vendor permits for farmers markets
Oh, sweet.
in the area so that I can do fitness demos in the park during farmers markets
Awesome.
on the weekends. And then I've also booked 2 festivals already in the summer to provide morning exercise classes before the bands get on.
Sweet.
So that and focusing on us old geezers getting ourselves injured during these things.
Nice.
So,
That's awesome.
I started a YouTube page where I have the first video. It is complete and total garbage, but it's called Return to the Pit, so that's why I laughed when you said that, because it's supposed to be for us aging punk and metalheads who may need a little more help before we start going and having fun. I have a beginner's level. I'm going to be filming an intermediate and advanced level as well as just exercise to help you get more mobile, not really worrying about whether or not you can do a headstand, but more, can I get out of bed?
Cool. That's awesome.
So it's a big project. I reached out. I'm looking for anyone who would like to collaborate. Mostly music artists, because right now the videos are pretty dull. So if you're listening and you are a musician and you'd like to get your music out to an audience that you aren't reaching yet, I would love to talk to you about maybe using that stuff in promotional or actual exercise videos.
Cool. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
DZ, what you got going on?
We had the private show yesterday. It was
I saw
pretty
that.
good.
I saw the
Yeah.
videos from that. That was dope.
Yeah, I didn't know that Lynn had an island, or I didn't know that Naha existed.
Oh,
And,
yeah. Oh, you've never been in a haunt before? Oh, you were in the haunt. That's
Yeah.
very fancy.
Yeah, so
That's
it was
very
fun
fancy.
having a fashion show there. Last minute, one of the designers dropped out, so Sensitive Club, the brand that I'm always promoting, I got to be a designer. So,
Fire.
you know, it was an interesting experience. Shout out to everybody that liked it. It was cool seeing like people recording and taking their phones out. It's like, bro, the people are just walking, but I guess you like the clothes that
Yeah.
much. But
That's
it's a different
excellent.
feeling.
That's excellent. Cool. Des, any words? No? Cool. All right. Again, thank you very much to Jamie Tank Smith for being here. Washington Square Tattoo at Tats McStabby. Find him and his wonderful work. It's been great having you. Thanks, everybody. I will see you next week. We will be finally, after a month of delay, the Doing Better News with Oliver Ox. We'll start next week. We're going to finally get it going. That'll be 6:30 on Rumble only, because we're getting all into the conspiracy theories, baby, and all sorts of controversy, everything that they don't want you to say on YouTube. But then the Doing Better show will be on next week at 8 o'clock. Do we have a guest lined up? I can't remember who we have. Watch out for announcements for the guests for next week. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.